Ok. Rieccoci sempre su Radio Quar per un nuovo episodio di Music in a Box. Ospite graditissima di oggi è l'artista svedese-canadese Erika Angell, che da qualche giorno ha pubblicato il suo primo disco per la Constellation, The Obsession with Her Body. Hello, Erika.
Hi. The record's called The Obsession with Her Voice.
Yeah, sorry, my mistake. I don't know
No
why.
worries.
No, because I've written it many times in the interview.
Yeah.
I don't know if the first time is wrong with not the better start at
Yeah.
least. The obsession with her voice.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to talk with you today because your first record is simply amazing. So let me ask you this. I said first on purpose because it's the first time I think you release something under your own name after several records, South Souls and Primus. Why this choice and what's the main reason behind this work?
Well, I think that, throughout a career, I think a lot of artists probably thinks about whether they want to do a solo album or not, maybe. Um, for me, I've always been a musician who likes to collaborate with other artists, and that uh, I've kind of been wondering why would I do something solistically. But then when I moved to Montreal, there was part of my music background or my music world that didn't necessarily come with me here, like the experimental expression. I didn't find as much of a landing ground for here or a platform. So there was one point when someone asked me if I could open up and do a solo show, and then I figured, okay, I'm going to devote uh,
Mhm.
that invitation to the experimental part of my musicality that I hadn't expressed much of in Montreal. So I just started to create a set, and I performed that a few times over the years, and it I realized, that the collaboration when you're on stage on your own is more with the audience than with the other musical collaborators, and that was also a fun interaction for me to have. So it sparked this more serious thought about actually doing a solo album. And then the Souls, we decided to take a little bit of a break after 15 years of working with that. So that gave me room to create this album. And it feels like a connecting with my own varied, versatile musical expression, and to do that through my voice.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay. Can I ask you about the title of the record because I'm a bit curious about it and the use of the third person.
Hmm. Well, it's actually a line that existed in a poem that didn't make it to the record. It's a phrase that or a line, poet line that has been with me for a long time. But I felt that it kind of, not just obsessed by singing myself, but also obsessed by listening to other musicians expressing themselves. And when you find a voice that you really connect with, you can spend a lot of time just like listening to it and contemplating over why it's touching you so much.
Hmm.
If is it just the timbre of the voice? Is it how it's sung, or there's so many layers in someone's voice. And since my work is very much starts from the voice and that it's expressed in many ways, I felt that that title was fitting for the whole album.
Uh-huh. I have a question about what you're saying before about the performance, the solo performances you were doing in the last periods that move you to start working on your solo project or are these songs about there are in the album are all new songs or new ideas or there's something old that you decided to use and that you decided to rearrange or something.
There's like "Dress of Stillness." Is one of the songs that has been with me for years since I started
Uh-huh.
doing this solo performance. There's like some other, like the idea of German singer. I used other poetry for it, but the concept of how it's performed was existing early on too. But a lot of it is the new music, and a lot of it is like improvised or placed, like poetry that's placed around a form, and that it's always a little bit different. from like every
Oh,
time
oh,
it's performed. But they
yeah.
definitely become more like songs after the recording, like music usually does. But I love to keep it fresh for when I record it. So a lot of it was improvised in the studio.
Okay, because this is a question I'm going to ask you later, but I'm doing
Hmm.
again
Yeah.
because it's linked to the one you're saying. But this one is going to be so I don't know, a potential hard question because there are many things I'm so curious to know,
Yeah.
and this is about the process of making of the album. I mean, let's take for example, so let your hair down. That is maybe one of my favorite song of the album. How
Hmm.
does it work? I mean, did you start from an idea? Because I found very difficult, and I'm saying it with as much as respect and regard, but
Hmm.
not to see what the process brings you to the final result. Because is it something that evolve when you're playing with someone else? Is it something that is born in the studio trying? Is and you know because the final reflect is the final result reflects. Um, um, and the question maybe sorry, the final result reflects what you thinking before recording it, or is it something that was born in that precise moment?
Well, it's like a long process, I think, like
Mm.
from when I first started to think about what this would be. I started to thinking about, at first, I often write poetry, a lot of poetry over a few months. So I have a lot of lyrics, and they're not, sometimes they're like finished poems, and sometimes they're just a bunch of paragraphs that I then switch around over songs when they are created. Uh, but it's also like, who would I do this with? Like, what is, who would I invite? And Millie Hong, that plays drums, I started working with her maybe during the just before the pandemic a little bit. We just jammed, and she is so intuitive and such an amazing drummer, and it's always been very easy to play with her. So that was natural that she would be there. But then I wanted also string arrangement, and there was a person, Jonathan Kaye, that I worked with before too, that intuitively knows my language a lot, musical language. And also this other sound engineer who's has this, like, kind of what I do in in guitar. I have mainly just pedals, old school analog setup, while he's
Uh-huh.
doing that more in the box, the same thing, how he treats sounds recklessly in the same way I do, but in the box. So it created more of a modern touch to my more analog sounds. So this combination of just knowing that these people are the voices is there as like an image or like a sound in my head. And then the actual creation of the music is kind of an exercise in losing yourself, I find, like maybe like a meditative state where you just I just work, explore, what is this sound? How does this is this sound? This sounds, it's cool. And what can I do with that? If I go from here and I improvise this poem on top of it, what happens? And then there's little seeds born throughout the way. And a lot of this music, like including Let Your Hair Down, is like a skeleton that's created at home on my own,
Mhm.
where I find a sound that I want to work with. I find tone material, and I have a poem, and I know that this part of the poem is happening here, the other part is happening here. And then I go see Millie and I tell her, maybe you can come in here and play whatever you want. But from that, it's still always elements. Some elements are repeated, like melodies that are composed, but other parts are always left open to be flexible or intuitive in each performance. So
Okay,
so
so
this
no, no,
yeah,
go
so
go.
this
Sorry.
no this and that there's also this element of the strings that did this a little bit as a collaborative process, where we had one studio day with just the strings, where Jonathan had brought a few tiny ideas, but also they improvised a lot. And I was like, can you take this note? Can you play it in octaves? Can you go from this? We just a lot of little improvisations. And one of those melodies that came out is the intro for Let Your Hair Down. So when we went into the studio, we recorded with this improvisation from the strings, and then Jonathan Kaye wrote new arrangements again to the improvisation after, which was
Uh-huh.
challenging because there's not always like a tempo, you know.
Yeah.
So it's been very like a a braiding kind of collaborative improvised collaboration throughout.
Yeah. So we can say that you had no idea of how the your original idea. Sorry for the joke. Would get. I mean, it's there's an idea. There's something you have in your mind, and then you put in. You ask your collaborator to develop it, to work on it together with, and to so with without knowing what where this trip would have arrived.
Well, it's not quite. I mean, I always have a very clear picture of what
Okay.
it
Okay.
should sound like, or like what kind of expression I'm after.
Huh?
It's very clear for me what kind of expression, which colors, which dissonance, which should it be an open, inviting, should it be harsh. You know, I have lots of instructions in that way, and I know
Okay.
exactly when it's not right and when it's right. But so I create a very clear frame for my collaborators, and then I let them do whatever they want inside that frame. Let's say.
Okay. But was it a hard record to make? I mean, it was. There were some songs that make you struggle more than others.
No, it was very smooth. I mean, it was a lot of process before I started writing to know what it was that I wanted to do. But once it developed, it's been a very like everybody's so talented, and I'm at a point in my life I think where I have an easier time letting go and just let people do what they're good at, you know? So like when you let people do that, um, it's easy often.
Uh-huh. Okay. And is it was it but I imagine I can guess it was a lot different working for your own record but and then confronting with the working on your previous works with in a band, for example. You were
Mm,
here you had the control of almost everything, or there are something similar.
I feel it. It's similar, very similar. More that I guess it's more that I'm more alone to make the final decisions. But
Uh-huh.
since you know always have a very clear image of what kind of music I want to do, and but is always also in collaboration with the people involved, and with Das Alves, for example, or that Josef Ulrike, it's always been together with someone else, and that collaboration is very present. But even in this solo process, you know, there's lots of administrative decisions and planning or logistics and all that stuff that you have to do yourself, but which I usually would divide with my bandmates. But musically, I find that it's kind of well, I can be a little bit more dictatorial, I guess. That I can.
Okay.
This is how it should
Yeah.
be. Let's decide this, you know, and then that's the final say, I guess.
And about talking about the lyrics, you said that you had a lot of poems already, and then so all the lyrics of the record were already before the song exists, and
Yeah.
so it is we can say that there's not a common denominator or a topic or something that can link all these 10 songs, basic on lyrically talking.
Well, it's me, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Like it feels like in the same way that all of this music contains seeds of my electronic side, my rock and roll side, my pop influences, my you know, avant-garde, like the operatic back, like everything exists in small pieces. And so it's the same with the poetry, that it exists in those all those, you know, life struggles, life reflections. It's like to write music is to me like diary, to write diary kind of, and it's a way to process life, and it's a way to share experience or questions, or yeah, the the way it is to live, through music. And I think that's why we also listen a lot to music, because we need another expression to just contemplate and have as a guidance through our life to cope with everything.
Oh. Yeah, because this is an aspect that is not so common, because talking with a lot of artists, not many times it happens to me that they said, I'm not listening to any song, any artist while writing the record because I don't want other external influences. But in this case, I've studied and listened very carefully to the playlist you've made on Spotify,
Mhm.
and to see that the springtime was on it because it was my record of the year on
Mhm.
2021. I don't remember the year, but it
Mhm.
was a great record, a great joy. So the question is, are the song you've listened to during the making of the record, or just advices of music you like and you want to share, and in some way affect you on the process?
I think that all of that music that's on that list has affected me in some way, and that there's elements, it could be like the drum sound on one song. Like, it doesn't mean that I don't like the whole song, but there's like, for example, in the Swans song that I have there was like a drum beat that influenced me for Up My Sleeve, let's say. Like that's, and it's not at all that it has to be this, but it's just tiny little pieces, or that this electronic world sounds really like something that resonates with me, or it's just all of these pieces, all of this music has something, a texture, a color, an expression, a form, a poetry, a delivery, something that speaks to me. And all of those things are maybe already part of me, that when you search for music, it's something in that music that you find that resonates in with who you already are. And sometimes it also introduces new aspects to stuff that you didn't know existed. But often I feel that there's like a recognition when there's a song or a voice or a form that, oh, this sounds like how I like it,
Hmm.
like a feeling of recognition and a feeling of mm, feeling hope, or some kind of what is that word, like
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Um,
Yeah.
uh-huh. But it's
That
not,
it helps,
not
that it helps you through life, kind of thing, in some way.
okay. Um, and I've got a couple of other questions. So the first is that this is your first record, if I'm not wrong, with the Constellation, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so for people like me, I'm in Italy, but I was born listening mainly to Godspeed, Black Emperor, Silver Empty Zion, and now I go on with I don't know, Eric Chanel, Jessica Moss, and it could continue. This label is a sort of institution. Is I don't know, one of those cases when you can say if it's a Constellation record, it's surely something good. It's
Hmm.
saturation, but and in this case, the equation is right again. But I've got this question: did you ever felt some kind of pressure or something for being under this institution, under to releasing their record under the Constellation?
No, because I mean, my album was already recorded when I approached them, so it was like, I've released music my own through the last few years, so I would do that, if I didn't find a label that was interested in. And so when they picked up my record, it was already how I wanted it. So if
Okay,
they liked it too, then that's, plus plus, amazing,
okay.
fantastic. And so great to have their input, and their love for music is very rare these days. I find, when you speak to labels, the way that they communicate about music and art and how they want the records to look and all that is just from pure passion for music and art, which I highly appreciate as an artist.
Absolutely. And so, are you going on tour?
Yeah, I mean, I'm mainly going to do a few shows around Quebec and around here in the spring and summer, and then I'm going to go to Europe in the fall. But I'm still planning
Uh,
that, so there's nothing announced. But yeah,
okay. At the next dates you're playing, are you going on solo or with band?
it's going to be a little bit of both. Like sometimes completely solo, often with a drummer, with Millie, and a few occasions with the strings too.
But are you playing? You playing with the same people that played on the record too, or
Most,
there will be some?
yeah, when they're available, yeah.
Okay, but great. I can't
Yeah.
wait to see you. And congratulations again. I think I have all I needed, so I don't want to waste you as much time than this. And
Fantastic.
thank you very much for your
Thank
time,
you
and
so much.
congratulations again.
Yeah.
And have a good day. Good
You
night.
too.
Bye
Bye.
bye.